Ayuka, thanks for coming in to us. Moving on to other news, and following a recent deal between the US and Iran, the UN says it's going to be starting to evacuate civilian sailors from the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, Sharon, the head of the UN International Maritime Organization, said that they'd secured the necessary safety guarantees and conditions to carry out such operations in the latest positive development surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. Separately, analytics platform Kepler said at least 37 crossings were recorded on Monday through the waterway, although that's still way below pre-war levels, but that's the highest since the war began. US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, had this to say.
We're doing very well with Iran. They've been decimated, and we're making a deal with them, and we'll see how that all goes. And right now, as you probably heard yesterday, we had 19 barrels of oil, 19 million barrels of oil come off, and that's the biggest in the history of the Strait, the Hormuz Strait. Our stock market is through the roof, and oil prices are tumbling.
Well, we should note that the pre-war daily average was 20 million barrels. Meanwhile, Iran and Oman said they would study the costs to be charged for services provided in managing the Strait of Hormuz, insisting it's in their territorial waters. Before the US and Israel started striking Iran, there were no fees for transiting the waterway. But news of more ships passing through sent oil prices lower. Brent crude settled at around $77 a barrel, and the US's WTI dropped to $73 a barrel, Sharon.
And meanwhile, the US and Iran have been giving different accounts of their deal, including on frozen Iranian assets.
Well, access to its assets trapped overseas has been one of Tehran's key demands in negotiations with Washington. On Tuesday, Iran's state media said about $12 billion worth of those would be released under a preliminary agreement with the United States. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump posted on social media insisting that any unlocked funds can only be used to buy food and medical supplies from the United States. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva rejected Washington's claim, saying the Iranian government would have total control over the funds.
Iran is the only country who decides what to do with those assets, and there would be no any role for any other country or entity to have a say on how those assets should be used by Iran.
The Iranian ambassador, Sharon, also said that there are some technical arrangements to be made by the United States and Qatar, as at least some of the estimated $100 billion in frozen funds are held in those countries. The US is said to be holding only about $2 billion of them, with far greater amounts held elsewhere, with China reported to have the largest share of up to $50 billion in Iranian funds. But Iranian officials often avoid describing those funds held there as frozen, arguing that they have been used for trade. China, of course, has been the biggest buyer of Iranian oil despite sanctions.
And Yuka, the war, of course, having an impact right across the global economy. Pakistan is having a mango crisis, partly caused by those tensions in the Middle East.
Mango crisis indeed. Well, Pakistan is one of the world's top producers of the fruit, growing around 1.8 million tons every year. But everything from a cost of living crisis, climate change, and now the Iran conflict has ripped the bottom out of the market, leaving farmers worried about their livelihood. Luke Schrager takes a look.
In Pakistan, mango season should mean a boon for local farmers. But at this Karachi fruit market, the country's ongoing cost of living crisis means there's anything but.
I can see really good mangoes everywhere, but people still can't buy them. In recent years, they cost the equivalent of $1 to $1.50 a kilo. Now they're half that, but people are still looking for lower prices.
And that's not all that's ailing what locals call the king of fruit. With the Middle East still in upheaval from the war in Iran and Pakistan itself at war with neighbouring Afghanistan and the border closed, trade has stalled, with shipping slowed to a crawl and freight costs have more than quadrupled to $6,000 or $7,000 per shipping container. Export targets in the world's fourth largest mango producer have now dropped from 110 to 80,000 tonnes.
Around 80% of our mango exports go to these regions, and all of them are currently facing disruptions. In the Middle East in particular, shipments are being delayed, and even when they're dispatched, they arrive late.
Elsewhere, Farmers are also facing unseasonably high temperatures, almost 10 degrees higher than normal, not just skewing growth, but stimulating infestations.
We have seen in last 3 to 4 years that farmers were not expecting a certain pest or a disease hike in March and April, and suddenly the pest comes and it creates a havoc, which has really affected the mango quality and mango crop by itself.
Exporters are now looking towards America, Europe and Asia to help with the shortfall. But without their main markets, the future for Pakistan's mango growers looks increasingly uncertain.
That's it from the business desk.
Yuka, thanks so much for that. Yuka Woya with all the day's business news.